Together we'll see who dies and survives, circled around a sacred fire, strumming along with our favorite lyre. Adventure called the quest awaits, your destiny's in the hands of the fates. But never fear, we're all friends here, we'll have your back when danger's near. Come with us through the pages as we unravel a tale for the ages into the Percy-Verse.
Hello and welcome to the Percy-Verse podcast. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Anna. Get ready to consider a life of immortal maidenhood, because today we're reading The Titan's Curse, Chapter 3, Bianca Angelo Makes a Choice. In this chapter, the gang is rocked by Annabeth's disappearance over the cliff. We meet the famous hunters of Artemis, and Percy loses to the Eternal Girls Club.
So we pick pretty much immediately up where the previous chapter left off.
Very
Artemis.
Sequential opening.
Yes, Artemis has just stated that she's Artemis, goddess of the hunt, and Percy, too much has happened in this moment for him to really, respond, appropriately or, in his, best way, and so he just kind of goes, okay, because he is still reeling from Annabeth going over the edge of the cliff with Dr. Thorne. Yeah. Grover immediately, he's overwhelmed, he's overcome, he's stammering and kneeling and can't get a full sentence out, calls her Lady Artemis, which I noted, he's the only one who refers to her as Lady Artemis. The other hunters, Zoe just calls her Artemis. There's no lady in front of it later on in those interactions. So I was kind of noting the ways in which Artemis is interestingly different from the other gods in terms of how she is with people who are not also gods.
And Grover's the kind of goat boy that would just be falling head over heels for any kind of deity or being or entity that is all about nature. And I think there is an interesting through line in the chapter, and in all of Artemis's scenes, I think throughout the books, of she is the goddess of the hunt, but that doesn't mean that she's always all about killing creatures, particularly not regular creatures that aren't immortal monsters. And I find this contrast really interesting, because normally any Grover wouldn't be down for hunting animals, right? But this has to do more with nature, I think, and cycles and the natural world and hunting immortal monsters. So I just think that's interesting.
Yes, totally. Because we saw in the Lightning Thief, the game for Grover in the Lotus Casino was the reverse hunter. He's hunting the humans,
Yes.
But Artemis doesn't fall under that same category of hunter. And she does, she has this interesting, I think, relationship with nature, because when we get to her tent, there are skins of animals that Percy recognizes, but then ones that he doesn't. And it seems it's a lot about living respectfully within nature, rather than dominance being asserted over nature.
Exactly. And one of the animals that he thinks is an animal skin is actually a live animal just chilling on her lap.
Right.
So so it's just, there's just an interesting sort of contrast as we go through, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of round out all of the gang's reactions to Artemis, Percy is just kind of speechless, too overwhelmed. Grover is overwhelmed in awe.
Fanboy.
Yes, and Talia hates it.
Yeah, she's not having any of this chapter.
Which is it's so funny knowing what her journey will be in this book.
Yes,
and
I know.
Where she will end up. It's very, very funny to experience how much she just has pure vitriol for Artemis and the hunters right now.
It's quite fun.
Yeah. But after the Artemis reveal, we kind of come back to Bianca being hold on a minute, what
Yep.
is happening? Who are all of you people?
Yeah.
And Artemis is kind of like, who are you? That's
Yep.
the real question.
Answer a question with a question. Artemis is like a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
Yes.
man. I have an actual question.
Yeah. And Bianca says the thing again about their parents are dead and they're orphans and there's a bank trust that pays for their school. But Bianca, looking at everyone, can kind of tell that the group is not
They're not
buying
buying
it.
what she's selling. Yeah.
Yes. And Zoe just very bluntly comes out with it and says, "You are a half-blood," in
Yep.
her very old-fashioned, as Percy puts it, like she was reading from a really old book voice. I love all the thys and these that we get with
Yeah.
Zoe. It's very, very fun because she
Very
says, "One
much.
of thy parents was mortal, the other was an Olympian." Um, and we get a classic joke of Bianca. This is a little like
Classic.
Percy humor, but Bianca
Yeah. It's
edition.
like an actual misunderstanding, but it's like Percy's vibe.
Yes, because Bianca's like an Olympian athlete, and Zoe's like, no, one of the gods. And this, I also think, is really interesting for the rest of this chapter. Like, Bianca and Nico have very different reactions to this
Yes.
news.
Yes.
Immediately, Nico is down. He's all about it. He's excited. This
Yep.
is like best day of his life.
Yep.
Bianca is like terrified and anxious. And I think like what I was kind of reflecting on after reading the chapter is, Bianca's the oldest sibling, and
Yep.
their oldest siblings always have that like added caretaker pressure, even if parents don't put that on themselves, like there's just
Yep.
always that. And then they do not have parents, and so like Bianca has felt this immense responsibility for Nico, and then
Yes.
adding the layer of you are a child of a god and therefore there's all these extra dangers that come
Yes.
into play. Like this moment for Bianca is, oh no, I will never escape feeling responsible for my little
Yep.
brother and like worried for him and like what's going to happen. Um
Well, and speaking as an oldest child, I
yes.
think the other thing here is that like part of that being responsible is making the best decisions and
Hmm.
taking on that like thought process of like what will be the best decision, and then the stakes are really high.
Hmm.
And so when she says there are no gods, like she's like really against what they're saying. I think it's partly like, oh, not more layers of responsibility like you're
Right.
saying, or danger like you're saying, but I think it's also like that's not rational.
Yeah.
And that would also add a whole new layer of like decision making that I would
Hmm.
not be able to tolerate or manage.
Hmm.
So it can't be true. Like this thing
Yeah.
cannot be true. And I just think it makes a lot of sense that she's like not as easy to convince about this. And I also really love that for the first time we get an example of two people, and particularly siblings, being told at the same time and different
Yes.
reactions. I just think that's so fun and
Yeah.
interesting as like character arcs, especially because of how their journeys are going to progress and like the choices
Hmm.
everyone's going to make. And like Nico and Talia in particular are going to like 180 on
Yeah.
everything by the end of the book. And so
Yes.
it's exciting and interesting to see it all get set up here.
Totally. And like you were saying, it's incredibly unique for like it for us to get two siblings at the same time, and like
Yeah.
two siblings in and of itself is like incredibly unique
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
demigod world.
Yes.
And so yeah, I love that we get to experience this because prior to that it was, we got Percy's point of view of that, but then in Sea of Monsters Tyson already knew, right? So we didn't have that like
Yep. We
moment
haven't had like a
again of
discovery in a while. That's a good point.
hmm. Hmm. And so I like that in this one there's the added layer of it's not just one person or two people who are maybe friends or but it's siblings who their world is fundamentally shifting together, but also like their experience of that shift is very different.
Yep.
And I also just Nico is so like young and like rose-colored
I
glasses and
know.
excited and just like a little baby in
I
these
know.
chapters, and I was having a moment where I was like my heart was already breaking for everything
I
that he goes
know.
through and
I
like
know.
how hard it's gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I felt that too. I was like, who is this kid? I do not know him.
Yeah.
I do not know this child.
I
Like,
know. I
you know,
know.
like he's just a totally different kid here. He's
Yeah.
so happy. He's so psyched. He's all in on the myth of magic. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just, I do think to that point though, that it is interesting for us to watch, particularly from Percy's perspective, how a bright, colorful, happy kid can become disillusioned,
Yeah.
not prior to the mythological world, but in the mythological world.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's important actually for this book to like,
Mm-hmm.
for the series, for Percy to see that and for us to see that, because Percy is one of our only examples of someone who came into this like kind of okay. Like
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
he had Smelly Gabe and that was a really big issue, but like
Right.
he had a good mortal parent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not like why Nico's okay here. It's probably because Bianca is being a good substitute parent in part.
Yeah.
Also because of where they spent the last many years.
Right.
Which was a vibe, even though he can't remember. But I do think that this is actually really important because it's not like being alone on the street that messed up Nico. It was like what happened when he actually came to camp and Percy being a big part of that, like what he agrees to. So anyway, there is so much emotional, like stuff for us to work through in this book and beyond. And I'm really excited about it, but it does make you a little bit sad to read how happy of a kid he is here.
I know. And it gets lost so quickly. In this book, and then just continued throughout the
but like
books.
makes him one of our favorite characters, I think, for both of us, and like such a compelling character.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. I also was just really like thinking about and wanting to understand, like, they are from World War II era, but with the Lotus Casino, like just aging and the weird mind trip of like they are still the ages, these very young ages, but like they have been alive technically. Like, you know, we kind of referenced like in season 1, we were like, is Nico like, you know, Captain America or Bucky, like, you know, right kind of thing. But with those examples, like, you know, Captain America's frozen, Bucky for like, you know, going off of the movies, you know, it was like he was kind of frozen then unfrozen, frozen then unfrozen, whereas they were awake and you know,
experiencing some kind of time,
but just time passing in a very weird way. So I just mentally was going down a rabbit hole of like, what does that like do to them, like physiologically, like to their bodies, and how, you know, like how does the Lotus Casino kind of like stop aging essentially, like, as well,
like move time outside forward while time inside is not moving as quickly. I also am excited to just start tracking all the hints. Like we get at least one in this chapter, and just to start like noting, we've got these like it's a theme actually in this book of Zoe and Bianca and Nico of how long ago was this person born?
Yes.
How old are they if you don't count the freezing times, you know? So anyway, I think it's cool that we're setting both clues up in this chapter in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so back to this moment of, you know, Bianca's kind of fear around this and Nico's excitement. Percy is a moment where he kind of is able to his brain is all about Annabeth and all those who search for her, but he does have a moment of really taking in like what is happening for these two kids and feeling sorry for them and remembering what it was like for him. And Talia, I think, you know, we get this moment where she, I think, kind of starts to come back to, like, I think she maybe has a little bit of a similar mental process to Percy in terms of like, oh, we have these two kids in front of us right now who like do need help and support in this moment, because the anger in her eyes subsides a little bit, and she, you know, kind of explains like that she understands that it's hard to believe, but the gods are real, and, you know, they have kids, those kids are us. and our lives are a lot more dangerous, like, for that
Yeah.
reason. And who Bianca then proceeds to say, dangerous, like the girl who fell. And
Yep.
I can only imagine it's like a pin, you could hear a pin drop, like, after Bianca says that
Yeah.
in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also just couldn't help but then think, like, and Bianca will be then the girl who fell, like,
Yeah.
later on in this book, but she doesn't come
That's
back.
so true. That's so true.
Like, Annabeth comes back from her fall, but
Yep.
Bianca does not from hers.
Woof. Woof.
Yeah.
Yep. The mirroring, the foreshadowing.
I know. I know.
Wow. Yep.
And then we get interesting information from Artemis that, like, was kind of reminding me of Sally Jackson from book 1 in terms of, like, Artemis explaining that, like, Annabeth has, like, vanished.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Artemis can't censor. Percy has this moment of, you know, really, like, finally allowing himself to realize, like, if Annabeth were in the sea, like, I could feel her. I would know that she was there. And I can't feel her presence. And so the whole, like, she has just, like, vanished, she has disappeared, just made me think a lot of Sally, because those were two where
that's a good point.
They're in another place that, like, cannot be sensed, you know, by anyone, like, with the ability to do that.
I personally can't remember the explanation for, like, what exactly happens to her, but this whole section I was like, how?
I know.
Like, how did somebody know in this moment? How did that work? Like, I do have a lot of questions.
No, I do too, because I also don't fully remember, and I was like, is this just, like, their version of teleportation? Or, like, I can't remember why and how it is
like, what force makes that happen?
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of taking Artemis at face value here.
Yes. And then Nico, still incredibly excited. He is just wanting to know, like, if everything in his Mythomagic cards is actually true. So he's, like, asking about Dr. Thorne, and Artemis explains that he was a manticore, and she gives him the monsters never truly die. They reform, you know. And then we get this interesting moment where Bianca and Nico start to realize the things that have happened to them in the past year, which is, like, I think that's, like, for me, like, tiny clue number 1. Like, that's not the full first clue, but, like, the fact that they're only talking about this past year and not the entirety of their lives.
Yeah, totally. Well,
feels
and this
like
is so similar to The Lightning Thief, when Percy starts to be like, oh yeah, weird things. Weird things have happened kind of my whole life.
Yes. Yeah. And Percy's going back to, like, the 2nd grade, and in this, you know, like, he's going back way further, whereas they're only remembering back to last summer, a guy who had tried to attack them in DC, and then there was a bus driver, and Nico was like, with the ram horns, I told you that was real. And then this is where we kind of loop in Grover. Percy's explaining, like, that's why Grover's been around, to try and keep you safe. And so Bianca's like, oh, are you a demigod too? And then Grover again, he kind of pulls a book 1 of, like, I'm just gonna do the big reveal. And he kicks off his goat shoes, and Bianca, I think too much information has been thrown at her in a very short span of time. She looks like she's about to faint. And Talia's like, Grover, put your shoes back on. Like, you can just verbally say you're a satyr. Like, we don't need to overload.
Yes,
you know?
Yes.
And Grover's like, my hooves are clean. And I just want to be like, that's really not the point.
Not the point.
It is not what's
not
the point here. And then Percy comes in to kind of explain that, like, all of them showed up to help them and bring Bianca and Nico to Camp Half-Blood, where they will be trained and learn to survive. And, you know, he says, like, you can stay there year-round. Nico is down. He's like, let's go right now. And
it's like
Bianca...
camp? Demigod camp? Sign me up.
Literally. And Bianca is like, well, hold on a second. You know, I think she, like, wants to understand everything of what's happening, which makes complete sense. She needs to
see, I mean, again, she's the parent, so she needs to see, like, the fine print and the form they have to sign with all the information. Like, that's where her brain is at.
Right. She's like, I need to do a tour of camp. I can't just be, like, taken there without knowing, like, what am I signing me and my brother up for in all of this.
I also feel like in a lot of ways, Nico's a really great, like, audience or reader stand-in in this book.
Absolutely.
Because, like, despite all the dangers and whatever, like, if you've read the first 2 books and someone says, hey, you could go to Camp Half-Blood, you're a demigod, you'd be like, sign me up, let's go. Yeah. So I feel like in a way, like, this moment is also just like all of us being
yes,
great, yes,
right,
absolutely, we're there.
Yeah. It did also make me really stop and think about, like, if I actually were in reality given this information revealed to me, like, I am a demigod, like, ooh. I think Bianca and Nico would live inside of me in terms of their reactions. Like, I think I would have Nico say, no way, I love mythology. And then I think I would have a lot of Bianca's fear and anxiety of, like,
yeah,
life is already hard and it's going to get, like, immeasurably more dangerous and scary and less safe. Like, so I think I would, like, be experiencing a whole range of emotions.
I don't know if this is fair, but as you're talking, I feel like what came to mind for me was the way I would feel about it vastly depends on who my immortal parent is. Which I can't tell if that's like the way that when you were looking for a car, the first question I asked you was, what color is it? Or if it's more valid than that. I can't tell.
That is so funny. Like, I'm only going to be happy if I like who it is. If I'm not,
like, if I like the vibe, like if I like the powers I might have, and, you know, how they are in the world, like, I don't know. I feel like that would make me feel very differently about being a demigod.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I get it.
Yeah, but that's what came to mind when you were saying that.
And so after the Camp Half-Blood explanation, Zoe then comes in to say, well, there is another option. And Talia gets angry again, and she's like, no, there's not. And Talia and Zoe, like, glare at each other and have, like, a mental standoff. And Percy's kind of like, dang, I don't know what happened, but they don't like each other.
Like, he's just, like, going back and forth, like they're playing, like, eye dart tennis back and forth at each other. Yeah.
Yes. And then this is when Artemis is like, basically, I think we've done enough info dumping for the present moment. We will rest here. And she tells Zoe to raise the tents, treat the wounded, and get all of the guests' belonging from the school. And then Artemis asks Bianca to come with her because she would like to speak with her. And Nico's like, what about me? And this is when Artemis is like, Grover, I'm sure, would love to help you.
I'd love to play your game with you.
And Grover is like falling over himself, being like, oh my God.
Like a little puppy dog.
My honor. Yes. And so Nico and Grover kind of wander off to the woods, and Nico's just asking about hit points and talking about armor ratings and all this stuff. And Artemis is leading a confused and I'm sure deeply overwhelmed Bianca.
To the cliff, but Artemis just says, we've burdened these children enough, yes?
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so then she's like, hey, Bianca, let me burden you some more, though.
I know. This was the first time reading the book where I felt a little bit like, okay, Artemis, like, this feels like a little bit of like, I'm going to swoop in.
Yeah, a little bit coercive.
Yes.
Because, like she wants Bianca, okay, I hate to do this, but, you know, it's usually not a good sign when an organization with a leader that everyone is really obsessed with and is all powerful tells you that you have a limited time offer to join up and give your soul over to them. Generally in the real world, not advisable.
No.
Really big red flags. So it is, the first time I read this necessarily where I was like, ooh, this feels a little culty, actually.
Yeah. Because she did, like, Artemis is, you know, asking Bianca to, like, tell her everything that happened, but she is also doing a pitch. She
is. And at the end, she's going to be like, so what do you think? You signing up today?
Yeah. And it's kind of, we'll get to, like, that part of this chapter, but I was like, whoa, we are moving at 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
With
again, usually a red flag.
Girl.
Exactly. Again, usually a red flag.
Yeah. And so after Artemis and Bianca have departed, Grover and Nico's departed, Zoe gives Talia one more like evil look before departing to do everything
Yep.
that Artemis asked her to do, leaving Talia and Percy alone. And Talia is like angry and she's like, the nerve of those hunters. She can't fully finish her sentences, and Percy's like, I'm with you, and he should have kept his mouth shut. Because Talia like whips around and she's like, and what now? And
yeah,
from the peanut gallery, you want to join in on this?
You weren't with me back at the gym, Percy.
Yeah, she really lays into him for trying to take on Dr. Thorne by himself, and then she says she goes for the low blow of saying that if they stuck together, they would have taken it without the hunters getting involved, which I kind of would be like, girl, I don't think that's like number one. Like she
no, but I think that's a hint that like some percentage of her anger here is because the hunters are there and not just because Annabeth is gone.
Yes. But then she says the thing of Annabeth might still be here, and she ends it with, did you think of that? And it's interesting. Percy thinks of some harsh things to say, and he says, I might have said them too, but then I looked down and saw, and he sees Annabeth's New York Yankees baseball cap in the snow. Yeah. And it's like this reminder of Annabeth that keeps him from like saying harsh things back to Talia, which I think is really interesting. It's like her kind of like peacekeeper role a little bit in between them is like still
is there through the cap. It feels like both that her influence is there through the cap, and also that Percy is reminded that the gravity of the situation is bigger than arguing with Talia over how it happened. Like, the point is Annabeth's gone, not necessarily how it happened and how it went down and who made the right decision or whatever.
Yeah. And as, you know, where we find out in this next section, like, Percy feels incredibly guilty. And I also think to a certain extent, seeing the cap, I'm sure there's a part of him that's like, well, Talia's right. Like, Annabeth would still be here. So I think it's a lot of things like mixed together all at once.
But it is an admirable moment of restraint, because that's usually not Percy's style.
No,
so
it's
that's
not.
Cool.
Yeah. And so Talia doesn't say anything else. She wipes a tear from her cheek before marching off, leaving Percy alone with a trampled cap in the snow. Yeah. So like a really, really sad, lonely scene to kind of end this like first section of the chapter on.
Yep, everyone's kind of split up in different tasks. And the last thing I'll say on this section, when we're talking about Zoe and Talia's conflict, and then like Percy and Talia's little conflict, I feel like you got to think about like how old is everybody? because in terms of Zoe and Talia like staring daggers and stuff, I'm like, okay, Talia was put in a tree and she's effectively still, 15, right?
Yeah.
Zoe is really, really, really old.
Right.
So you would think that she wouldn't be this petty still. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like she might be above this. So then my question to you was, do you think that by becoming immortal as a preteen, that you keep the emotional state of a preteen?
Well, what it reminded me of, and I can't remember who said this. I have in my brain that it's something maybe Taylor Swift has said, but I might be wrong about that. But I know someone has made the statement around fame and celebrity that like you get stuck like mentally and emotionally at the age that you like became famous. And it's like hard to exit that and kind of like really move through that. And it feels to me obviously like this like fame in our world versus like immortality in this world isn't necessarily a one-to-one.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying.
I do think that like, I mean, like my questions go to like, okay, so if your body is not maturing past preteen, does that mean your brain is not continuing its development? And like, if so, then I do think you would get like for all your years of life you would I think still be trapped,
like you might have wisdom of experience but not a shift in your like the way your brain thinks about things
and like emotional
your emotional maturity
yeah
interesting. I think that's probably true, but I just I think again, when you read things slower, they just, everything sits a little bit more deeply in you. And
It
I was
really
just
does.
like, before these comments of like, oh, being a middle school girl forever felt kind of flippant.
Mm-hmm.
And like, now I'm like, wait, but that's a lot.
Right.
Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. But if
Yeah.
you really think about it,
It is a
so
lot.
yeah, I just thought it was interesting to have this stare down between these two essentially preteens who are like
Mm-hmm.
who both have been stuck in time in different ways. Stuck in time
Yeah.
is such a theme in this
Yes, it really
whole
is.
book, and we do
Yeah.
have a time bending big bad. So I do
Yeah.
think it's worth thinking more and more and more about time. I think as we go
No,
through
it
these.
is. I agree. I agree. I think that is an interesting, like, overarching theme of
Mm-hmm.
these books. I think especially because, they all center around the gods and the children of the gods who are
Yeah,
like these eternal beings who kind of exist outside of time because they aren't impacted by time in an aging sense. The only ways that they're impacted by time are in the ways that like humans over time kind of change culturally, maybe don't
yeah,
worship them in the way that they used to, but like, you know, yeah. So it is, time is an interesting theme in
something to
these
think about.
books. Hmm. Hmm.
So, as everyone has scattered off to these different places, the hunters set up their camping site so quickly. They have like
Oh
pop up
yeah.
tents, or
Yeah.
they're really fast. I don't know. But they do these 7 large silver silk tents in a crescent. So, we've made a moon
Of
around the
course.
bonfire. It's like we just have to be on theme all the
Yeah. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny. And then one of the girls blows a silver dog whistle, and a dozen white wolves appear out of the woods, which is just everything about this is such a striking image
Oh
that
yeah.
we get
Oh yeah.
painted for us, all about Artemis and the hunters. So they start to circle the camp like guard dogs. We've got our bonfire, our crescent of tents, the dogs circling. The hunters are walking through them and feeding them treats, which
Mhm.
is like, it's so funny because it'll be this like really majestic, magical,
Yeah.
powerful image. And then it's like, you want a dog treat?
He's still puppy.
These little
He's still
puppies.
dog.
Just little giant white wolf puppies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're feeding them treats. The hunters are not afraid of them. We'll
Hmm.
get to that's a key thing to notice because we'll get to a detail later. And Percy's like hanging out by the tents because he's not so trusting of these giant wolves,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Which is fair.
And then he also notices falcons watching from the trees, and I just
Hmm.
thought, like, is Percy like a secret bird watcher? Because how does he know they're falcons? You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
just think it's
Right.
funny that
Right.
at night he's able to identify the birds type.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
don't know.
true.
I like
That's
the
true.
idea. I forget, is it ornithologist? I'm trying to remember. There's a
Hmm.
specific
I
name for a
think
bird
so.
watcher.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love the idea that Percy's like a secret ornithologist. He like took a lesson at camp one
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
So he gets the feeling with the falcon's eyes flashing in the firelight that they're also keeping guard as
Hmm.
well. And he almost is feeling a sense of like peace or feeling pleasant because even like the wind is dying down. Like it seems like
Yeah.
Artemis has like control over the weather even. And he almost feels calm, but he feels the pain in his shoulder and he feels the guilt, like you said,
Hmm.
weighing him down. And these two things are just making it impossible to feel calm.
Yeah.
And he also is just like thinking about how Annabeth is gone and how angry he was at Talia, but also that, he's feeling like guilty, like it's his fault.
Yeah.
And Annabeth had wanted to tell him something at the gym, which at this point,
Yeah.
like, I almost forgot that because we've been through so much.
Yeah.
So I think it's good
Yeah.
that he brings it up again here. And he's just like, she wanted to say something serious to me, and
Hmm.
I don't know what that was, and maybe I will never know now.
Yeah.
And that's just like a terrible feeling,
Yes.
you know?
No, it's really, really awful. I really feel for Percy. I think especially like, I think everyone needs, and by everyone I really mean like Percy and Talia need like a cooling off from one another,
Yeah.
in this moment. And at the same time, it also makes me sad that like Percy, Talia, and Grover can't really like come together. Like they're all
Yeah.
grieving Annabeth and the uncertainty.
Well, and like you said, Annabeth is the glue. Like, that's the hard thing, is
Yeah.
she's the glue of this. This is not our normal trio.
Right. And I think like even though, it was Artemis who like asked Grover to go with Nico, I do
Yeah.
think there is like that symbolism of the three of them are now in three, like they are physically separate from one
Right.
another in this moment. It really feels like it symbolizes like the glue is gone. And so
Yeah.
the fractures are
I
beginning.
also think it'd be interesting to think about what would happen, like a what if scenario if Annabeth hadn't
Hmm.
fallen off the cliff for the whole book, but also, like, would Bianca have joined the hunters?
Oh yeah,
Because I feel like Annabeth is sort of in between Talia and Zoe.
totally.
And it might have been interesting for Bianca to have a middle opinion who's also
Yep,
a girl.
I agree. I agree.
So, like, who also could join the hunters. So, anyway,
Yeah.
I that's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, and I do think that Bianca, like, I do think that Annabeth would have really understood Bianca. Like,
Yes.
Annabeth, like that, like the weight of responsibility, like, she
Yes.
carries that. And while she doesn't
Yes.
have the same, like, younger sibling dynamic that Bianca has with Nico, Annabeth still has carried that from such a young age and had to be
Yes.
incredibly responsible and, like, be her own parent, like, from a really
I
young
feel like
age.
Bianca would see a lot of herself in Annabeth.
Yes. And so I think there would have been like like being seen, being understood, being validated, and that maybe what like Bianca may have still made the same decision,
Yeah.
but I think it might have whatever decision she came to, I think would have come about with a little bit more like consideration and like
Yep.
time,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I think with someone by her side who like would have been able to really just be like, I get it. Like
Well,
either
and
way you
Annabeth
choose, I
might
get
have
it.
even been allowed to walk with Artemis and Bianca for this
Hmm.
conversation. Like, it's just, yeah, it could have just been really different. So it's something I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about until
Yeah. Yeah.
this read through was what that could have looked
Yes.
like.
No, totally. The one thing that I will say as someone
Yeah.
who does not like camping and will not camp, I
Yeah.
think I'd camp with the hunters. Like they seem like they've got a
Oh,
good, comfortable
true.
setup, and I'm like, I might go camping with the
You
hunters.
think it's like a magical tent when you go inside? There's like, it's a little
Oh yeah.
nicer.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah, for
might
sure.
be a
For sure.
bathroom. Yeah.
Yes. Also, we're about to get to it of this like description of Talia pacing in the snow,
Yeah.
but the wording of walking among the wolves without fear, I just was
That's what
like,
I'm
that's
getting to.
yes.
Yes. That's
I
the
was like,
foreshadow.
that's Talia. Like one, it's a foreshadow to like like her arc in this book, but also I was just like, I feel like that is Talia's life summed
Yes.
up, is walking among the wolves without fear. It's
Without
like what
fear.
she has had
Totally.
to do.
That's her
And I
vibe.
also I also also really think it's so interesting, like if I'm gonna like overanalyze it for a second, because like Jason is your younger brother, child of
Hmm.
Roman version of Zeus, he literally had to, as a baby, couldn't
He
walk with the wolves, but
did.
like
Yes.
I don't know. It was like there's all these
Like
connections
almost
and
like Talia's one of the only Camp Half-Blood campers who could have made it to Camp
yes.
Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
the way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right. Whether it was intentional from this book or not, the fact that she's in here with Tangling with the Wolves is very cool
Mm-hmm.
foreshadowing, even like for two things, for her arc, but also for Jason. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
I like
just
that a
think
lot.
like she is a character who has had to be unbelievably like brave and courageous from a incredibly young age,
Yeah.
that and her vibe is her energy just as a person
Yes.
is that she will walk among the wolves without fear.
Oh
And so
yeah,
I just like
absolutely. No, that's a
loved
good,
that as like
yeah,
her tagline as a
tagline. Yeah,
character.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And also why I think Bianca would relate to Annabeth more than Talia just off
Yeah.
the bat in terms of like who their struggles turn them into, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. But in this moment, Percy is like really focused on what Annabeth was wanting to tell him. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
they danced to have a song together. Like,
Yeah.
it's really hard because they're really close. They got really close in the last book. And
Mm-hmm.
it's basically, it's just so hard that Percy then has to be away from her for like this entire book
Yeah.
after getting much closer in the last book.
It is, and I was just thinking about like, you, like, what would all of these experiences do to like a demigod's like attachment style?
Oh my
Like just
God.
the loss and the back and then the I mean,
Oh no.
like I just feel like
Oh no. Oh
it
no.
would just be
Well, in general, it'd
terrible.
be fun to talk about everybody's attachment styles, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
I think if I had to start out, I would say Annabeth is avoidant and Percy is secure,
Mm-hmm.
which is an interesting starting point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. I would say Nico is anxious. But
But
it'd be
he
interesting.
goes
Yeah,
on a journey. I think his changes. Um,
possibly. The behavior from an anxious attachment style can look like avoidant, even if it
totally.
comes from, like, the point about is where it comes from.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes,
I think
yes.
Nico acts from a very anxious attachment place for most of the time.
Sure, yes. I think it then becomes one of those things where, like, I think he becomes so deeply traumatized that it's like, what is the
What is trauma and what
like
is attachment? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
They're like
Hard to
intertwined.
parse
Yeah,
apart.
for sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So then, yes, we get Talia pacing in the snow, walking among the wolves without fear. And like I said earlier, Percy does not feel comfortable to do so. The hunters are doing so. And so I think we get some foreshadowing for
Yep.
Talia's arc in the book. And then she is looking back at Westover Hill, which is now completely dark and looming in the hillside beyond the woods. So we get just so much like stark imagery in this
Yeah.
chapter, which
It's
I think
really
is really
dramatic.
cool. It's
Yeah.
very dramatic. The whole chapter is very dramatic,
Yes, yes.
which for the ages of everyone involved kind of makes sense.
Yep, yep.
And then Percy has this really, really interesting moment where he lets us know that there are times when Talia stands so motionless that you would think she was still the tree that her dad
Yeah.
turned her into at Camp Half-Blood. And that's just so cool and interesting as a
I know.
description.
What it immediately made me think of was how like post
The guinea pigs?
yes.
Cersei? Yes.
Percy is like forever has like is like a little bit of a guinea pig, and I was like Talia is like forever a little bit of a
A
tree,
little bit of a tree. Yep.
a little bit of this like big like stoic still pine tree.
Yep. Which again kind of works for her vibe in a way.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
But then one of the hunters comes back with Percy's backpack because they have been going to fetch everybody's things. Grover and Nico come back from their walk, and Grover helps Percy with his wounded arm, which is really great. And Grover, of course, of everyone, probably is the best like nature healer that's in the group at this point. Nico is just delighted that Percy's wound is green.
Everything is just exciting
He's just having a great time.
to this boy right now.
Just having a great time. And honestly, like if we think about his perspective, like we talked a lot about Bianca's perspective when we talked about like some of Nico's perspective, but I do think there's an element of like you've just been with your older sister your whole life that you can remember, and it's boring because she's trying to keep you safe, and that's boring.
right.
Being kept
Yeah.
safe is boring.
Yeah.
So like not only is he around a bunch of people, which is exciting, and there was a cool fight, which is exciting, he's also like not bored finally.
Yes. And like the world of his card game that he loved is actually true.
Is
like we were
real.
saying.
And he gets to
It's
be
like-
in it.
Yes. Like he is fanboy who discovers he gets to be in the world that he is a fanboy of.
Exactly.
And I do think like that age difference of like he still has, because he's like 10, the like his brain is not at a place to fully be like fully register all the dangers that come with this world. He's able to just live in the excitement, because like if you think back to 10, you're like 5th grade, like that's he's able to retain that, whereas Bianca's I think just enough older, also with all the responsibilities she shouldered for such a long time, like she can only really see the danger. He is like only focused on like this is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. This is like so exciting. So he is having a great time watching Grover dress Percy's wound.
Yeah.
And luckily, between the magic salve that Grover uses, and the ambrosia square that tastes like homemade brownie to him, we have Percy's shoulder feeling better in just a matter of minutes, which is very relieving. I'm like, why didn't they do that first? But
I know.
I feel like Again, back to Artemis being maybe low-key problematic in this chapter.
Right.
I kind of feel like if Talia was the one injured or just any girl was injured, maybe they would have done that first before they went on a walk, but whatever. It's just a feeling I have. So then Nico is going through his bag and taking out all these figurines. So then we get to see which ones he has. And Percy at least tells us that he has Zeus with a lightning bolt, Ares with a spear, and Apollo in his sun chariot. And we are about to get to see that in real life, which is kind of exciting. Mm-hmm. And Percy's commenting on his collection, and Nico's like, I've got almost all of them, plus they're holographic cards. Well, except for the very rare ones.
Which, like, that is also, like, a really sad foreshadowing to, like, what will be the reason for Bianca. Her death, like, it's just,
I know. There is infinite foreshadowing in this chapter. Just piled on top of each other. And then we get our deeper hint of, like, why they were just talking about the last year, like a more explicit one, where Percy's like, you've been playing this game a long time. And then Nico explains that it's just been this year, and that before that, he can't remember. Like, he forgets what happened before the last year, and that was weird. And I just wrote, hint, exclamation mark. Right, and then Percy's like, Nico looks unsettled, but then he's like, can I see your sword? Like, he's immediately back in, like, right into the mode that he was in before. Percy shows him how it can turn from a pen into a sword by uncapping it. And then Nico asks a fantastic question.
Incredible
question. Which is, does it ever run out of ink?
Incredible question.
Nico should be a podcaster. And Percy's like, well, I don't really write with it. This is one of two questions that are really great questions that I would ask that don't get answered in this chapter. There are two. There are two. I'm annoyed. Anyway, then he's like, are you really the son of Poseidon? And Percy's like, well, yeah. And then he asks, can you surf really well then? I guess there's three questions. Three incredible questions that don't get answered. And Percy's like, I've never tried it. And I'm like, actually, why though? Why not? Because if I was a child of Poseidon, I absolutely would try surfing. What are you talking about?
Totally. I feel like this is the, like, from my very limited understanding of having been from neither of the coasts, a, like, East Coast versus West Coast thing of, like, child of Poseidon born on the East Coast. Like, my understanding of the East Coast, like,
you can't surf on the East Coast.
You're not really surfing. I mean, maybe you could, but that
but I'm just like, if you're like the son of Poseidon, you could.
No, totally. But that it's like the culture is boating, where like, primarily, and like fishing and whatnot. Whereas like West Coast, there's much more of a surfing.
But you know what you can do with a boat? You can attach a big long string to it, and then you can get on a surfboard and you can hold the string.
He's got to go. We need a short story of Percy goes surfing for the first time.
Percy goes surfing.
Percy's big day out. He goes surfing for the
still
first time.
Waiting for the story.
Yeah.
And so Percy's like, geez, Nico, I never really tried. And then Nico just keeps asking his questions, because that's Nico in this whole chapter. And beyond this whole chapter, like, did I fight a lot with Talia since she was the daughter of Zeus? Percy doesn't answer that one. If Annabeth's mother was Athena, the goddess of wisdom, why didn't she know better than to fall off a cliff?
Yikes,
Percy
Nico.
tries not to strangle Nico for asking that question. I do think that there's an interesting thing here where, like, Nico is not taking death very seriously yet.
Yeah.
Which is probably developmentally appropriate for him.
Yeah.
But given how he's going to feel about Bianca and, like, what happens with her, I do think it's interesting how, like, cavalier he is with the idea of someone dying here. Yeah. Potentially dying, because that's not been confirmed, right?
Right.
And then also, was Annabeth... So on the heels of, why was Annabeth not smart enough to not fall down? And he sees what happens, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, also, was she your girlfriend?
Right.
the one who's gone? The one
Nico,
who fell?
It's like, he has the energy of, like, a toddler, but, like, with the, like, enough, like, you know, intellect of, like, a 10-year-old that he's asking these, like, very insightful questions. But the energy feels very like a toddler. It's like, why? Well, but why not? And why can't I? But, you know, and, like, never ending. Like,
well, and also, like, raised as male. Like
totally.
just asking, like, not being empathetic with the questions that you're asking. Yes. So at that point, Percy's about to want to throw him to the wolves. And then Zoe Nightshade comes up and interrupts. And that helps to diffuse the time bomb that Nico has set with all of these questions.
Yes.
And we get a little bit of more description of Zoe. We learn that she had dark brown eyes and a slightly upturned nose. And she has her silver circlet and a proud expression. And she looks so much like royalty, hint, hint, that Percy has to resist the urge to sit up straight and say, "Yes, ma'am." Which is funny for Percy because it's unusual for him to do something like that.
I know. I always find it so amusing, those moments, like when he's so anti-authority, but the moments where he's like, "Oh, yes, ma'am, sorry."
Oh, okay,
like,
yes,
it's really funny to me when that, like, kicks in for him.
Because it's so not Percy.
Yeah.
And so she studies Percy distastefully like he was a bag of dirty laundry she'd been sent to fetch. And so we're just getting all this great, like, this is how the hunters feel. And explains that Lady Artemis wishes to speak with thee. We get the thee. And then that's where Percy's headed next.
Yes. And so Zoe leads Percy to the last tent, which, according to him, looked no different from the others. And so I noted that as, like, again, the differences in Artemis, like, and any of the other gods, their, like, palaces, like, they would have a tent where he'd be like, and the grandiose giant one at the very end.
This part, I think, is the not problematic part of Artemis. Like we talked about last time, like, she definitely doesn't do the same power games, for the most part, that the other gods do.
Yeah. And so Percy enters to find Bianca seated next to Artemis, and Percy still has trouble thinking of this, like, young auburn-haired girl as the goddess Artemis. And inside of the tent, it's warm and it's comfortable. There are these silk rugs and pillows on the floor, and in the center, there's this golden brazier of fire that seems to burn without any fuel or smoke. And
do not try that at home. Burning any kind of fire inside your tent.
No. And there's this polished oak display stand that has her huge silver bow that's carved to resemble gazelle horns. And on the walls, she has animal pelts, and he recognizes a black bear, a tiger, and then there are several others that he can't recognize. And he has a funny moment where he's like, I think an animal rights advocate would have a heart attack. And it just made me think, I was like, oh man, PETA would, like, hate Artemis. Like, PETA would, which is just funny, you know, that is funny.
Well, and this also gives you the hint that Artemis goes around the whole world. Like, I think that the gods in general, we think of them, it's like, oh, you're in the Western world, and it's mostly US centric, and that's mostly where they seem to be hanging out in these books, at least. And this is, like, one of the only gods where you're like, oh, she travels.
Yeah.
Because unless she's hunting in zoos, which I really hope she's not, you're not going to find a tiger roaming wild in the U.S. So she's going elsewhere. So it's just an interesting, like, nod to how she also acts in the world differently than the other gods seem to.
Yep, absolutely. And then Percy kind of wonders, like, maybe since she's the goddess of the hunt, maybe she can, like, replenish whatever she shot. And then we get the moment of what he thinks is an animal pelt lying next to her is actually a deer with glittering fur and silver horns, resting its head contentedly in Artemis's lap. So it's a very, like, it's lavish but not, like, over the top. It's like everything is very like the silk is, like, what makes it feel lavish, and it's obviously big enough for all of them to be comfortable with all of these things, but it's not, like, ornate or like Olympus is, where it's, like, imposing and it's like bow down to us and this massive, like, you know, structure.
I do wonder if Percy's, like, doing his try to make it make sense thing that he likes to do. Like, oh, maybe for every animal she kills, another is born somewhere, you know? Like,
Right.
But I feel like, it makes me feel like Grover has had a big impact on Percy.
Totally.
Because I don't feel like pre-Lightning Thief Percy would think that hard about, like, whether it's okay to kill an animal or not, necessarily. I really feel like this is Grover's influence.
Totally. I completely agree. Yeah. And so Artemis tells Percy to join them, and so he sits across from her on the floor, and he feels a little bit uncomfortable as Artemis studies him. And
Yeah.
I do find it interesting how much she like just kind of says the thing that's like not being said in
Yes.
that moment, because
Yes,
she
because the
opens.
gods also don't do that usually.
Right.
Yeah.
And she opens with just asking, like, are you surprised by my age? And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a little. And she explains that she could appear as a grown woman or a blazing fire or anything she wants, but that this is what she prefers. It's the average age of her hunters and all young maidens for whom I am patron before they go astray. And this is
Mm-hmm.
where we're going to get into.
Things.
Yeah, because
We have
even just the
things to
phrasing of before they
discuss.
go astray
Yes.
is
We have
loaded.
things to discuss. We
So
have at least 3 things to discuss.
yeah, so I'm first gonna run through Artemis's hot takes
Great. Great.
because she's got some hot takes.
She's got some
So
hot takes.
I think I'll run through them and then we can
Okay.
dissect and discuss.
Okay. Sounds good.
So when Percy asks for clarification on what she means by go astray, she says, grow up, become smitten with boys, become silly, preoccupied, insecure, forget themselves.
Okay.
And what are the other things she can, and basically she gets the explanation of like, you know, boys are not like boys are like forbidden to have contact with the hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Um they are all like basically young
The last
maidens.
boy that they ran into was a random mortal boy in Colorado that she turned into a jackalope,
Yikes.
which I wrote Cersei vibes, but then I realized every single god threatens to turn every single mortal and demigod into an animal, so maybe it's just god vibes.
It's just kind of like Artemis follows through.
Yep.
Or you know
Yep.
how like the record
She doesn't
like,
do threats. She just does
no.
it.
She's the
Yeah.
parent that actually is like, okay, if you yell in Target,
Right.
we're gonna go home. She's like, we're going home. We're back in the
Yep,
car.
yep, yep. She's like, I'm not even buying the stuff. My basket
No.
is just here on the
Yeah.
aisle and we are
Yeah.
leaving. Yep.
Yes. But yeah, so I have a lot of feelings. I mean, in general, there's like a bigger picture of I have a lot of feelings about it. It is not Greek mythology alone.
Yeah.
It is far and widespread, the kind of like importance and emphasis placed on maidens and young girls
Yes.
and like
Yes.
their virginity and purity and all of those things holding like religious weight.
Yes. I was thinking that I might preface our conversation with 3 statements that are different from what Artemis says.
Totally.
Okay. Number 1, virginity is a social construct and not a
Yes.
real physical thing.
Yep.
Number 1, that is medically, factually true.
Yeah.
Number 2, gender is not a binary, and people can exist in many different kinds of gender, and not even on a spectrum that's like a linear thing, but in like
Right.
more of a scatter plot that is whatever like is
And
actually your identity.
and is also a social construct.
And is also everything I'm about to say is a social construct. And is also a
yeah.
social construct.
Yes.
3, sexual orientation is complicated, and this presents a heteronormative way of looking at
Yeah.
sexual orientation. And in reality, there are many, many different kinds of sexual orientation, and sexuality is not bad. And also, you could be asexual, and also,
Right.
sexual orientation is a social construct. So, with
Yes.
those 3 things established, feel free to continue. But I just think like those are the points that are in contrast to the way that Artemis's
Yes.
rules for the hunters work.
Yeah. Oh, and I think the other thing we'll quickly say is like we always like to kind of asterisk note as we're going through these books is as Rick Riordan has grown and changed, that has become reflected in his books.
Yes.
And so like this also changes later on down the line.
Yes.
But we're just gonna be dissecting what is like
This
currently
particular
true.
book.
Yeah. In
So
this
we are
chapter.
criticizing both ancient Greek mythology and this particular book
Yeah.
with the awareness that unlike many authors, Rick Riordan has grown and learned over time and presented
Yeah.
different ways of like how you can engage with Artemis and being a hunter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I really the idea, the framing of like basically like puberty leads a young girl astray,
Right.
really, like, it kind of broke my heart, like, reading that,
Totally.
being like, you go
Yes.
astray, like, just because, like, you are changing and growing and experiencing, like, whatever for you that looks
Yes.
like,
Yes.
you know, like, just, I was like, oh, no, no, that's not.
Specifically, the words are like silly, preoccupied, insecure, and forgetting yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that, like, first of all, uh, silly is an interesting word.
Yeah.
And in the artist's way, Julia Cameron says, like, as soon as you start calling something that you want to do silly, that's actually pointing you toward, like, your truest self, like what
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
want to do, but society might not let you.
Mm-hmm.
Preoccupied is like, yes, developmentally, when you are a tween,
Right.
you should be focused on basically just you, just
Yep.
your feelings,
Yep.
just all your angst.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that's when you reach Twilight, or you
Right.
watch The Summer I Turned
Absolutely.
Pretty, or whatever is the
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
right, of the
Yes.
moment. That is, like, Twilight was developmentally appropriate. Like, for
Oh,
all the
yeah.
different hot takes on it,
Right.
perfect timing for my middle school self.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Insecure, I'm like, okay, but, like, you are literally saying judgmental things, which is what
know.
makes people insecure. People
Right.
are only insecure when they feel that they are not measuring up to societal expectations. So
Yep.
the problem is not the person who feels insecure.
No.
It is the society and the systems of oppression that society perpetuates that makes them feel
Yes.
insecure in the first place.
Yes.
And then the idea that puberty is when you forget yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
it's when you're discovering yourself. It's when you're
Right.
learning really important things about who you are. Like,
Yeah.
it is quite the opposite. So this focus on this, like, purity, chastity kind of culture that Artemis has with the hunters is, like, wild, and to be honest, is not doing her any favors to make her seem less culty.
No, definitely not.
Because controlling sexuality is a big part of cults.
Yeah. Yes. And the other thing that, like, is I think there are layers to, like, she chooses to be as a goddess who can never age and like can take whatever form and shape she wants to. She chooses to be the average age of her hunters. And, like, when she said thing about insecurity, and I was thinking about, like, all of the societal things that make, like, anyone, like, born as a girl, like, identified by society as that, like, insecure. It's all of the, like, it all has to do with, like, aging and the way that your body changes as you just, like, age and grow,
Naturally.
like, however is naturally for you and your body. And that, like, Artemis is, like, basically being like, oh, you just don't, like, we cut off insecurity by being, like, by just stopping aging, when it's like, but that's not, like,
that's lich and making you immortal, I suppose. But I'm like, literally, you are cutting people off at the age where they are likely to be most insecure. And I think that's part of why she's taking Bianca on this, like, really, like, urgent, because she's 12, right? So, like, I assume Artemis would actually prefer all of her hunters to be not tween age, because then they, like, aren't maybe quote unquote fighting these kind of normal developmental processes, you know?
Yeah. No, so. It's very, very, like, complicated. And then to all of the, like, kind of qualifying statements at the beginning, it's like the energy from Artemis as of this book is, I'm like, I don't know if she's rocking with trans girls, you know, like,
I know, I was thinking that
she's rocking with, like, you know, because even though she says, like, oh, I accept everyone, mortal, demigod,
right,
like,
which that part's interesting, because that's not normal for gods to put everyone on the same,
like, I'm like, love that, but she very much is, to me, the energy I'm getting is, you must be a cis girl, like a heteronormative cis girl, to be accepted as a hunter of Artemis as of right now. And that as of right now feel good. At all.
It feels really, really, really icky. And definitely when I was younger, the first times I was reading this, I wasn't, like, thinking about it that way.
Oh, me neither.
But now I'm like, oh, I don't like what I'm reading. Like, it just doesn't feel good to read this perspective. And and the way that she's about to talk with Bianca and like kind of I just feel like she's pressuring her, but
I know
that's just my take kind of reading
and
it
Zoe
now.
as well. I think the two of them together, because you know, like if I imagine the hunters being able to be like anyone at any age who just like really like believes and worships Artemis, you know, and like believes in like Artemis's like mission in the hunt and like the mission statement and like all of that. I'm like, that's a beautiful thing, you know, like if
because like why does her mission statement like, yes, we have these particular maiden goddesses, right? But like why do her hunters, like why does her mission statement have to include this maidenhood? Like why can't like if she wants to do that, that's her personal choice. And then she can like as she goes, she can like do other hunter things with people but not have to have that perpetuated. Because like the thing we should say too, I have like a side interest in cults, which is why I bring them up sometimes. So I've gone down the rabbit hole of many things. And something with cults and high demand religions and why this matters. Why does this matter? Why are we talking about this? Beyond representation, beyond perpetuating the idea of heteronormativity and gender binary and these things. Like, why does it matter? And part of why it matters is because suppressing your sexuality, whatever it may be, causes immense psychological damage to people. And particularly if you're suppressing like homosexuality or being bi or anything that like is seen as bad in these contexts can lead to really bad outcomes in terms of mental health. Like it can do serious damage. So it's not just like, oh, like we're perpetuating the thing. It's like suppressing this causes psychological damage and or like behaviors that aren't great for other people. And that's just not what we want to see in society. So and that's why it matters in the real world.
And I'd also add to why it matters in the real world is there is already so much messaging that, again, like if when you are born you are assigned female at birth, that your value is tied to your like virginity and purity, right? And that is still so unbelievably prevalent. Like in the current year 2026, that is still incredibly prevalent. And so there is also that element of like in our real world, like this thinking is still very, very much alive and well and is incredibly damaging like to so many people.
Like even if you are heterosexual, it still messes up your brain to just suppressing sexuality of any kind is kind of my point. I think that ties those two points together. Suppressing sexuality of any kind is severely damaging to folks.
So I think we've kind of touched on pretty much everything that Artemis says here that is
problematic,
I'll say for myself, and like frustrating to read, for me, and made me both like sad and like angry at Artemis at the same time. But we'll kind of jump back into
one last thing.
Please go ahead.
One last thing I thought that is part of it being manipulative is Talia is nowhere in this scene. So Percy is the only one who's invited to come into the tent. And Percy is going to be the only voice arguing for Camp Half-Blood, and Artemis and Zoe are going to be arguing for being part of the Hunters. And Talia could be there to back up Percy. And again, to just be like someone that Bianca maybe can identify with more than she would identify with Percy, potentially. And also just like having 2-on-2 instead of 2-on-1. So it's just like another layer that feels problematic.
Well, and what I'll add to that is not only the like number of people representing opinions in the room, but also like interestingly, though it isn't the case like outside of this tent and the Hunters, societally speaking, Percy, by being a boy, actually has less power in this moment, which everyone else in the room is very aware of. Like the fact that Percy's even allowed in this tent is like Artemis says like or Zoe's being like Artemis turned him into a jackalope is like you don't actually Percy doesn't have a place here of like respect in terms of then his
and there's almost there's like a tacit threat of violence against him right now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So like Talia would hold more weight and more respect in this tent were she here, but she's not, and that's another reason why it feels intentional. So
agreed. Good point.
So yes, returning back to this conversation, picking up right after Zoe's threat, essentially.
Yep.
To Percy. Artemis is just like, yes. like remembering with like satisfaction.
I enjoy making jackalopes.
like,
it's so callous and flippant.
Yeah. I can go down a whole mental rabbit hole of like those poor parents who were like, "Where is our son?"
Absolutely.
Like, what happened to our son?
Absolutely, because they do say boy. Anyway. Going.
Anyways, so Artemis kind of, after saying that she enjoys making jackalopes, which I'm like, okay, so you turned a lot of
calm down.
People into jackalopes. She says that she's asked Percy here so that Percy can kind of tell her more about the manticore. She says that Bianca's reported, her basically like what she saw and understood, but she wants to hear from Percy as well. So Percy reports everything back, and Artemis and Zoe then kind of start to have like an understanding with one another that they don't really fully communicate like openly to everyone else. And because Artemis is like, I fear this is the answer, and Zoe's like, the scent, and Percy's like, hey, somebody fill me in.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? What's going on here?
Explain.
And Artemis, the best she gives is that like things are stirring, that she hasn't hunted in a millennia, like Prey so old she's like nearly forgotten. And she goes on to explain that they came here tonight sensing the manticore, but that he was not the one that she was actually seeking. So then she asked Percy to like say again like exactly what Dr. Thorne said. And we get another little hint. Percy references the general, and Zoe's face pales at that. Yep. And she turns to Artemis, and Artemis is like, okay, hold on. And we get a fun little, Percy inadvertent joke of he's like the great stir pot, and Bianca's having to kind of be like Annabeth in this moment of like, it was the great stirring, it was not the great stir pot.
Yeah. Again, I think that they're like similar in some ways.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the kind of thing about them having the most important monster of all, who would bring the downfall of Olympus. And this is when Artemis gets so still she could have been a statue, which I think is an interesting thing to say about goddess who would have a lot of statues.
Absolutely. Also, like, her and Talia should have a still off.
Right. Yes. And Percy like kind of tries to be helpful, and he's like, maybe he was lying. Like, maybe, what do we think?
That's always what it is, right, Percy?
Right. And Artemis is just like, nope. And again, different from the other gods, like, who would not admit this. She says, I've been too slow to see the signs. Like, none of the other gods would be like, man, I kind of dropped the ball on this one. Like, I gotta get with it. And then this is when Artemis says and kind of dictates she'll be the one to hunt this monster. Zoe wants to come with her, but she's like, no, I need to do this alone. It's too dangerous even for the hunters. She knows where she needs to start her search, and like Zoe can't go there with her, and I'm like, where is that? I want to know.
I know.
What is the location? And then Artemis says that she will find the creature and bring it back to Olympus by winter solstice. So we have this is like our second solstice deadline.
Yes, we love a solstice deadline.
Love a solstice
deadline. And also it's a similar thing where her idea is to bring it as proof to the council of the gods that they're in danger, which was kind of like Percy was bringing the lightning bolt back as proof too, that like he didn't steal it. And also, like, I was thinking about how much we give the Council of Elders, like, a lot of grief. Cloven Elders. A lot of grief, and, like, the Council of the Gods. I'm like, all these councils. I mean, it parallels real life, but it's like, all these councils, largely male, largely ineffective, largely ignoring signs.
Yeah.
Largely problematic.
Largely ego-driven.
There are themes.
Yes.
Anyway.
Almost sounds like our own government. Wow, that's crazy.
Almost. I wonder where he got the idea for these councils from. So original.
And Percy asks Artemis if she knows what the monster is, and she says, let us pray I'm wrong. And I love that Percy, like,
this is the third question.
Yes, instinctually, without even thinking, goes, can goddesses pray?
I love it.
I love that question, and it makes Artemis kind of smile a little bit. And then she says that she has a small task for him, and he has to throw in a little quip of like, does it mean me getting turned into a jackalope? He's like, at this time,
Yeah.
I've been threatened with dolphin. I've been threatened with
I've been a guinea pig. I don't know if I
Yes.
need to add other confusing animal feelings inside my body.
Yeah. And she says that sadly, no, it's not that, but that she wants him to escort the hunters back to Camp Half-Blood, that they can stay there in safety till she returns. Zoe hates this plan immediately. She's like,
Yep.
no, last time we stayed there. And Artemis is like, it'll be fine. And references a previous misunderstanding, but it's their right to use cabin 8. And she hears that they've rebuilt the cabins that they burned down. And so we're like, okay, it was a little bit more than a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
I think,
we get a little hint to a past drama.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then this is when Artemis turns to Bianca and asks if she's made up her mind. And Percy, and she's like, I'm still thinking about it. And Percy's like, about what? What's going on? I'm out of the loop. And Bianca explains that they invited her to join the hunt. And immediately Percy's like, no, you can't. Like, you have to go to Camp Half-Blood. Chiron has to train you. It's the only way you can learn to survive. And Zoe is like, it's not the only way for a girl. See our whole previous conversation about everything. And Percy's trying to pitch like how cool camp is with the Pegasus stable and a sword fighting arena. And he's like, what do you think get by joining the hunters? And Zoe says immortality, which he's just kind of like,
good comeback.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Artemis explains that because the hunters follow her on her adventures, once they swear their loyalty, they are immortal unless they fall in battle or break their oath. Which is like the other, we didn't really like dive into that in our conversation, but the whole like you lose your immortality if you break your oath. It's very like, there is no, that's the other thing that doesn't feel good, is that like you have to be like perfect according to Artemis's rules of like what being a perfect like maiden and hunter is, and that also doesn't feel
good. Which is another thing that's really common in Heidemann religions and cults is perfectionism. There is a term that is called scrupulosity, which is like a religious OCD that people can have, and it often has to do with perfectionism, and it just like, this is how you make someone have that,
right? Yeah. No, fully.
This is how to do it. This is the how-to manual.
Yeah. And Percy's like, what's the oath? And Artemis explains that it is to forswear romantic love forever, to never grow up, never get married, to be a maiden eternally. And Percy, he's like kind of trying to process it. And this is when he's like, so are you just like recruiting half-bloods? And that's when Zoe's like, nope, it can be anyone as long as you like, you know, believe essentially in Artemis. And she lifts off, you can be half-blood and Nymph or immortal, and Percy's like, so which one are you? And Zoe's angry. She's immediately angry.
Stop asking me personal questions.
And then Percy kind of returns his focus back to Bianca, and he's like, this is crazy. What about your brother? Like, Nico can't be a hunter. Like, you really got to think through this. And Artemis is like, yeah, he'll go to camp. Unfortunately, it's the best boys can do, you know. And Artemis is telling Bianca that she can see him from time to time, which I'm like, what does that mean? From time to time? Like, what is that interval? And also that is
like they're immortal, so time is different for them.
Yes. And also, like, I doubt Bianca can be like, hey, Artemis, I'm gonna go, like, take a week to hang with my brother. Like,
probably not.
Yeah, I think it'd be very much, like, on Artemis's timetable. And I'm like, there's a good chance that Bianca could have gone and then not returned until Nico was, like, 60 years old, you know? Because, like, Artemis has no sense of, like...
time.
Yeah.
And Bianca's already experienced losing her sense of time.
Yes.
Which is also interesting. And I wonder if that's part of subconsciously why this appeals to her.
Maybe. And Artemis really is laying it on thick, saying that Bianca will be free from responsibility, the camp counselors will take care of him, and Bianca will have a new family. Us. And that's like the first thing that Bianca repeats back. A new family, she says dreamily, free of responsibility. And Percy's this year trying to be like, you can't, this is nuts, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And Bianca asks Zoe if it's worth it. Zoe says it is. And then immediately Bianca just says, what do I have to do? And the fact that they jump straight into it. I mean,
right to
Bianca doesn't even, like, get to talk with Nico. She doesn't even get to tell Nico, like, hey, I've made this decision. I will be doing this.
Yes.
Like, there's no...
Like, when her question, what do I have to do? It wasn't, I'm ready, what do I have to do? It was, like, can we talk about consent?
Yeah.
What do I have to do is not yes. It's not an affirmative, enthusiastic yes.
No.
It is just a question. And the answer to that would be, you have to swear an oath that involves these things. Not, repeat after me.
Yeah, I know.
Like you said, they jump so quickly. And this, kids, is not what we call consent. Enthusiastic or otherwise. It is not consent.
Right. Yes, not at all. And consent is not just for, like, sexual situations. Consent is, like,
it's for everything.
The board.
Yes.
And this...
relationships and situations. And also, like literally, we even get a hesitation moment where when, in response to what do I have to do, Zoe says, say this, and then says the first line. Bianca's first sound is I... ... and then I. So it's like she's been cornered into making this choice so quickly. And she hasn't talked to Nico about it. She hasn't talked to anyone except Percy about Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah.
Like this is literally, like, uninformed.
Yes, completely.
This is completely uninformed. She's never even been to camp. Like,
no.
This is an arbitrary time clock that Artemis and Zoe are putting on it, and it does not feel good to read this.
No, it really doesn't, because, like, Bianca could have absolutely been like, we're all going to go to camp. Let me check camp out. I've gotten a chance to get to know the hunters. Let me check camp out. Let me also, like, she doesn't get a chance to be like, my options are hunter, camp, or just, like, living on my own.
She just found out today that she's a demigod. She doesn't even know who her godly parent is. She doesn't really know who her parents in general are. And she's had this really weird history that's very apparent from everything she and Nico are saying. So, like, like, for the pitch to be like this and not to be like, hey, this is an option. Why don't you think about it? We're literally immortal. So there's no timeline. Just, like, join us.
Right.
When you're ready, preferably in, like, the next year or two, because we like ours to be a bunch of middle school age kids. That's just our preference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know. No, it's really not good. It's really, really not good. It does not feel good. I really don't like the way
I do
that
not
Artemis...
like it. Sam, I am.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But yes, Zoe proceeds to tell her, give her the pledge line by line. Bianca repeats it back line by line, and then asks, that's it. So again, right, because she doesn't know. She's got no clue. It could be like, and now go sacrifice a jackalope. You know, she's got no clue.
Yes. It could have been anything because they didn't tell her what it was. Like, she's just starting, and like godly oaths are usually pretty dramatic. Like, like breaking your oath with the River Styx is like something terrible will happen to you level.
Yes. I know. Also, I realized I didn't say this before when you were bringing up, like, the kind of cultish energy and the things to look for in this is the whole, like, you will have a new family.
Yes.
Like, that is such a pitch. There is a certain TV show that I watched. I've actually watched a couple regarding, you know, famous.
Even, like, no responsibility in a way. Like, they usually put a lot of, like, free labor onto you, but it's like, you don't have to think anymore. You don't have to make decisions for yourself. Like, that's kind of the energy.
Finding someone who does not have a support system around them, like, feels alone, and pitching them on, you will have a new family of all of these people who will love you and be your new family is, like, a classic, like, cult pitch line.
Well, and then, like, distancing them from their original family or loved ones, which the way Artemis is going to talk about Nico at the end of this chapter also really, really pisses me off. Yeah. And, like, in general, as an older sister, I, like, don't relate to Bianca's choice. like not even talking to Nico, and that also could just be me, like who I am and my circumstances, you know. But like I could never imagine a world where I would have like joined a club that would take me really far away from you and like didn't even talk to you about it first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that
No,
wouldn't even
I
cross
agree.
my mind.
Yeah. And also like vice versa. You know, like obviously Nico doesn't get presented with the same like offer, but yeah, I think like my feeling on all of this stuff is whether or not this was the right decision for Bianca, how it came to pass was not good.
Was
like
not okay.
Bianca becoming
Unethical,
a hunter,
irresponsible.
of Artemis could absolutely like I can see that I can understand that for her.
And this is not on Bianca. Like
exactly.
The problem lies with Artemis and Zoe and the way that this went down from the people that had the most power in the situation.
So, yes. And so Zoe says that basically all that's left is for Artemis to accept thy pledge, and then it is binding, and Artemis accepts it, and the flames brighten, casting a silver glow over the room, and Bianca looks no different, but she takes this deep breath and opens her eyes, and she says that she feels stronger. Yeah. And Zoe says, welcome, sister, and Artemis says, remember your pledge, it is now your life, which is like, that's intense. And in this moment, Percy can't really speak. He feels like a trespasser and a complete failure. And he can't believe that he'd come all this way and suffered so much just to, what feels like to him, lose Bianca to, and he calls it some eternal girls club. But, you know, I think that's the other thing that's really hard is that it's like, you know, Percy, Bianca, and Talia showed up to help support Grover, you know, get these kids out of there. Artemis and the Hunters weren't even really aware of these kids' existence. It was just like happenstance, you know. And so like
they were like chasing this scent that led them there, and then because of the way that everything went down, they were in a perilous situation when the Hunters showed up. Because Talia's not 100% right that them being in a perilous situation would have avoided interacting with the Hunters at all. We learned that they were chasing this scent anyway, so they would have potentially shown up, and this could have happened even with Annabeth there. Though, again, I do wonder how Annabeth might have affected this conversation.
Totally. I completely agree. And while to a certain extent, I do feel like Percy's framing of like only to lose Bianca, I'm like, well, she also wasn't yours. You know, like I understand that his point of view is every half-blood must go to Camp Half-Blood. Yeah. You know, it's like he doesn't have the power to do the same thing to Bianca, you know, that Artemis and Zoe did, but he is coming from a similar mindset of like, this is the way to be, you know, Mandalorian about it.
Yes.
Like both camps are viewing their option as the only one that is correct for Bianca, which again, for me, I'm like, no, Bianca has many options.
Yes. That is problematic in and of itself as well. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
And Artemis tells Percy not to despair and that he'll still get to show both D'Angelo's to your camp, and if Nico so chooses, he can stay there. And I'm like, that was also for Bianca to get to choose in a similar manner.
But she didn't even get a chance to see it, to choose it in the first place. But I was just thinking that there is a way in which, because we're in like a big war right now, like the precursor to large battles, and they are losing demigods, like we do get told that like maybe Percy, when he says like lose Bianca, it's not so much that he's like claiming some kind of right over her, though that's still problematic if that's like there, but that it's partly that like they need all the demigods they can get, and that's still problematic because it's not giving them choice over like fighting and stuff, but it just could be influencing the way he's thinking about recruiting demigods right now.
Absolutely. I completely agree. That's a great point. And Percy's like trying not to sound too surly, but asks her how they're supposed to even get there. And Artemis says that dawn is approaching, and so she tells Zoe to break the camp, tells them that they all need to get to Long Island quickly, and that she will summon a ride from her brother. And Zoe doesn't look super pleased about this. And as she's leaving and tells Bianca to follow her, Bianca pauses in front of Percy and says, I'm sorry, Percy, but I want this. I really, really do. And then she exits, and
at least we get some kind of affirmative feeling from Bianca, because I think if we didn't have this, it would just feel like really icky. Like this whole thing would feel terrible. We do at least hear from her that like she does She's expressing that she wants to. How it went down is still problematic. But
yeah. And I also think it's really hard, like, you know, we don't actually get the point of view of the conversation. I still think regardless of maybe, like, the vibe that I get from Artemis is she was very much, like, hard pitching Bianca on joining. Like, wanting a yes. Kind of, like, no matter what. But it also, we don't really get to follow, like, the last we got from Bianca was her still being, like, struggling to believe the gods are real, you know, and then I think it's also hard to, in such a short amount of time, she goes from that to, I'm not going to be a hunter of Artemis for forever, and a choice that fundamentally will change her life more than deciding to stay at Camp Half-Blood for a year would, because staying at Camp Half-Blood is not binding in the way that to, like, her life as a whole.
Well, and, like, she's stopping her aging process. Like, there's serious consequences and choices that are being made here.
Yes. And so Percy is left alone with Artemis, and he's just kind of like, so we're gonna get a ride for your brother?
Right.
And she says, yes, boy, which is fair. I'm like, we're doing
the god thing. Yeah.
And this is where she takes shots at Nico, and I don't like that. She says, you see, Bianca D'Angelo is not the only one with an annoying brother. It's time for you to meet my irresponsible twin, Apollo. And I'm like, Nico's not annoying.
Calm down. Like, but that's why I'm saying that's part of the manipulation, is, like, distancing Bianca from Nico.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
like, making it out like Nico is a burden and Nico is annoying and Nico has all these things. And it's like, that's not who he is. And even if everyone's annoying, by the way, and that's not all any of us are.
And it completely ignores the reality of, like, the reason why they do not have parents is because of the, like, structures, the system of the gods. Like, the reason why their mom died and they did not get to grow up with her. The reason why Hades had to, like, have zero contact with this children, like, this whole system that the gods have set up for how they have children and then have zero relationship with them and take no real responsibility for them and, like, their lives, is also why Bianca feels so responsible for Nico and why she has to be a parent, even though they do have a parent who could do more than just, like, set up a trust fund to ensure that they have school, you know?
Send them to the Lotus Casino and just be like, okay, have fun, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and that all those factors are also why she's making this choice, and so many of them are externally imposed and out of her control, and she's not even aware of.
Yeah. I think it's such, like, it really is such a great reminder of, like, she makes this decision not even knowing that Hades is her dad, not even
that's
knowing,
what I'm saying. Like, she found out today. She was years old when she found out she was a demigod.
4 hours ago.
Like,
I'm like,
at most.
Like, this whole...
Not even who the parent is, not even what that actually, like, and, like, all the implications of that are unexplored. What Camp Half-Blood looks like, what it feels like. Like, there is no information that she is basing this decision on, other than the people who want her to do the thing are telling her how great the thing they do is, which is like, okay, that's really biased, obviously. Anyway, we've talked that to death, but any other final thoughts for this chapter before we get to meet the one, the only Apollo next chapter?
I think I have said all of my thoughts for this chapter.
So many thoughts.
Anything else from you?
I have 2 thoughts.
Okay.
My first thought is a question. Do you think that the hunters get to at least not have periods? Because that sounds appealing.
Sure, I know. I was wondering. I think that would just, like, depend on, like, your body's development. It would be really annoying to be like if you got your period younger, you know.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, does being immortal just take it away from you? That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
I kind of hope the answer is yes.
I think I would hope so too, because it's like, at least you get that. Also, God, imagine, like, hunting and camping.
That's what I'm saying.
And immortality, like, once a month for like 300 years.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I really hope it's one of the perks. I don't know if like there's anywhere in the canon where it talks about it, but my hope is that because you're frozen in time, hopefully it means that you don't have a cycle to go through.
That reminds me,
and that's a perk. That's worth considering. Yes. That was better than any other argument that they used, I think, in this chapter.
I agree. That reminds me of one of the things that I felt like it took longer for Rick Riordan to incorporate, and he didn't actually incorporate it until I'm looking at my shelf, Daughter of the Deep. It has not yet actually to be incorporated in any of the like Percy Jackson, King Chronicles, Magic Chase books, is the reality of there are characters. I can't remember if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but there are characters.
I think you've talked about this off the podcast.
Okay. There are many a character in these books who would be having a menstrual cycle and would absolutely be having it at some point on one of these quests. Like, there's no way that they all luck of the draw get a quest.
And that is, like, never addressed.
Right. Not on their period. Like, and that, because I have endometriosis, had absolutely horrific periods for a very, very long time. Like, I literally, that was one of the things I would think about when I'd be like, could I quest? Be like, oh yes, I could. And then I'd be like, oh my god, if I were on my period, trying to fight a monster, trying to be like, we've lost the bag, I have no pads, I have no nothing.
Exactly. I'm thinking of just like how much space in your backpack the pads would take up.
Yes. No, literally. So, and just being like, I have really bad cramps, you know, or like, I don't feel good, but I'm having to sleep, you know, like on the forest floor.
Yeah, or like in a truck carrying zoo animals that are, you know, smelly and not in great shape. Yeah.
Yes.
So many circumstances.
I very much appreciated that was finally included in Daughter of the Deep, because I mean, that was something I thought about not just with Percy Jackson alone, but with like every book that I read growing up where kids were adventuring for long enough and not a single one ever got their period, and I was like, but you absolutely would be.
You're like, you literally would be. Literally
you'd be having to deal with this, and you're not, and that is like authors of all genders doing that for a really, really long time. Really long time. And I think I don't know how many other people thought through that. I think my the
intensity of what you experienced, how
debilitating it was for me just really made me think about like, God, how is no one we're just pretending this doesn't exist.
So I kind of hope that that's a perk, because it feels like it'd be a really good perk. The other thing is just my second thing is that I just think it is delightful that we're gonna get Artemis and Apollo in like sequential chapters. That they are so opposite in so many ways. And that one of the ways in which they are so opposite is that we just met maybe the most virtuous stickler about sexuality, you know, goddess, and then we are about to meet like the most sexual god that ever existed on the face of the earth. And I'm just so psyched.
Yes. And
that just feels fun.
And I am just excited to keep on diving into this book. It's so great, and it's so we just get more complex and we get more deep, and you know, we do. As we keep on saying, the stakes get raised more and more, and we just get more and more.
They truly do. Yes. So, no, the stakes in this book are turned up quite much, and super psyched for next chapter. So we will see you next time when we read The Titan's Curse, Chapter 4, Talia Torches New England. Bye.
Bye.